Hello and welcome to Your Green Voice. My name is Xan and we're putting the environment centre stage, highlighting the positive and hopefully inspiring you to help our lovely blue planet go a little bit more green. Now, you may have seen it in the blog, you may have heard about it on the breakfast show, but there is a new app coming to Southampton. And Breathe Easy, Southampton's Clean Air Routes project. It is all to do with finding less polluted routes, quieter routes, more greener routes into the centre of Southampton and about the city. It's trying to avoid pollution as best as you can, but also have a pleasant journey in. This is for people who are cycling or walking or wheeling. Now, the project is a collaboration, which is always a good thing, between Southampton City Council, Jauntly, who we mentioned last week, and also Tranquil City. And Tranquil City are looking at all aspects of this, including the data, the pollution, and really having a good look at Southampton and see where we can make it better for everyone who gets about the city. So join us on the line right now is Grant Waters. He's director of Tranquil City, which is an environmental data and research company. Grant, a very good afternoon to you. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Xan.
Well, that's a pleasure. And can you just give us a little bit of a backstory to what Tranquil City, how it began and why you think it's important?
So we began Tranquil City with me taking a bit of time out because I was a bit overwhelmed by things, living in urban environments. I was living in London and just things got a bit too much. And I realized I was gravitating during that time out to green spaces, spaces where I could just find a bit of, a bit of mental respite, I think, a bit of time out. And I realized, these are places in our cities that are so important. And I think we need to try and celebrate them. And they weren't really at that time being protected. And I think now we've got a growing sort of need for green space in urban environments is very much part of the conversation, this sort of public conversation. But we really need to push and drive how these spaces are really important to us. And that's really how it came about, because there was so much evidence behind why these spaces are important. Green spaces, contact with nature, whether you live in the city or not, whether you're just visiting it or exploring it just in your free time, it's really important to make sure these are integrated into everyday life. So that's really where it came about.
Well, Southampton's actually very lucky because it has 49 green spaces, 49 parks. And strange enough, though, we're in the top 10 of polluted cities in the country. So this project that you're working on is not reducing pollution as much as we'd like that to happen, but trying to help people avoid the pollution and avoid the noise. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's very much trying to, in the short term, encourage that behavior change through the guise of making a positive change. This is by avoiding pollution and avoiding main roads. You can actually really improve your mood and the sort of journeys you're taking by incorporating greenery into your journeys, taking a bit more time to sort of slowly walk or cycle to those to your destination. But you're avoiding pollution, but you're also improving the soundscape, reducing your exposure to noise, and hopefully feeling better after the route. I think we also have an environmental psychologist on our team, and we're actually actively investigating how the benefits of taking these alternative routes are on people, have on people. And this is really what the kind of positive spin that we want to show with this app is. It's not just avoiding pollution, it's making your journeys better and more enjoyable.
Well, that sounds very interesting to me because I'm going in that sort of direction at the moment, so away from work, looking at the mind, seeing how things work, positivity and all that. But how, as a data company, do you collect data on that?
So we've mapped the whole of Southampton for air quality. So we've actually used a machine learning model that we calibrate to the sensors that you have across the city to look at where there's hot spots of pollution and where there's sort of more cleaner air areas. And we're actually able to look at each road segment in that pollution exposure and assess it that way. We also bring together noise data that's done nationally, but we bring that into the map here and look at it at a really sort of 20-meter resolution. We also bring in information about the amount of trees and tree cover, the tree canopy, the shrubs, so smaller shrubs and greenery, and then also parks and grassland, etc. And we're able to combine those all together and start to look at, well, what is the potentially restorative value of that location when you look at all these different data sets together. And this is what we've incorporated into the app.
There's a couple of things you said in there that I'd like to just get a little bit of better knowledge about. And the first bit was machine learning. Can you just describe to the listener what machine learning is?
So machine learning is where we can actually learn from a big data set, look at the trends and replicate that and sort of other applications. So what we've done specifically for this is that we've learned from quite detailed air pollution models that are done in other places, particularly London, that are very usually quite expensive. But we've learned from them and we'll be able to apply this in Southampton, use the machine learning and the validation and the sort of correlation between different elements of the urban environment, road types, street sort of typography and things like that to actually predict what it's likely to be. And then we validated it to the sensors that are in the city. So we're using technology in order to do that a scalable way rather than something that potentially is unreachable for a lot of cities because it's either just expensive, it requires a lot of time and effort, it could be years in the making, as opposed to what we're able to do in this project for over a few months.
That's very interesting. I can't wait to see the results. But also, as a radio person, I was very interested that you talked about noise as well. Is Southampton a noisy city? Is it too early to say it is compared to, let's say, London or to other cities you may have studied?
Well, I'm actually an acoustic consultant by background, so I have a good knowledge in terms of in terms of noise and the impacts of noise, and also what positive sounds can actually do. So in terms of Southampton, whether it's noisy or not, it's very similar to most cities. It's in the busy areas of the roads, it gets very dominated by road traffic noise. You have a little area that those areas sort of really dominated by noise, but you can also find areas of really relative quiet. And when we're looking at tranquility per se, it also had a lot to do with noise and exposure and the positive sounds of nature. And you can find those in any city. And this is really what we kind of try and promote. It's let's try and celebrate those areas that have those restorative qualities, have those better soundscapes, avoid noise, especially for people who are also quite hypersensitive to noise, who have certain sensitivities to noise exposure. It's really important to make sure that we're making our cities inclusive from that regard, because some people can obviously be highly triggered by different noise sources. So it's important to make sure there's those pockets of quieter and relative quiet spaces for them to explore the city as well.
I think we can. Is it fair to say we can get used to noise?
You can, but it has an underlying impact on you. Even if you get used to sort of sleeping with a lot of road traffic noise or aircraft noise, for example, it still has an underlying effect, and it can have over a long period of time. It can actually have quite significant health impact. So it's definitely something you can get used to on the surface level, but underlying, it's really quite important to consider and make sure that we're helping, making sure you have those spaces and those times for when you reduce that noise exposure. It's a really important point that not many people focus on. Air quality obviously made it rightly so high on the agenda, but noise is also a major pollutant that has a lot of negative impacts on us over a population.
And not to get too nerdy about this, but is it the narrowness of streets and the height of buildings? Can that amplify noise or can that?
Yes, it definitely can. It's called the urban canyon effect. And it's basically like reflecting surfaces, reflect sound energy back into the street, as opposed to it going elsewhere. So it's similar to air pollution in some regards as well. So it can kind of trap that pollution inside that street. So it's definitely, it is to do with the design of the street too, and how sound energy can escape. Interestingly, we did some research about green walls and green infrastructure and how that can mitigate and reduce noise. And actually that can help absorb sound. So if you actually had a green wall, a green facade, so greenery going all the way up to the buildings, it can reduce that effect that you just said in terms of having tall buildings amplifying it and reflecting sound back. So there's a lot that green infrastructure can actually do. And also, most interestingly from that research, we found that psychologically, the view of greenery can actually significantly reduce our perception of noise exposure. So by up to 10 decibels. And that means that just looking at green infrastructure out your window can reduce our perception of how loud a sound is, particularly road traffic noise, just for the view of it, nothing to do with the actual sound level that it's making.
So in the next part of the show, we're going to go into more detail, especially as you've got some workshops happening on Monday and Tuesday that people can join to take part in this, to help mold the journeys that you're making and basically have a better understanding of what's going on. But in a nutshell, could you just tell the listener exactly what app or website you're going to have at the end of this and how they're going to be able to use it?
So we're going to be building, and we've built in beta version, a web app. So one that's accessible via any browser, not an actual downloadable app. So we want to make sure that's accessible for anyone without having to download anything on their phone. It's a web application. So it's a website that will enable you to firstly search locations around Southampton and find out its environmental quality. So it's pollution exposure. So in terms of nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. But it's also going to look at the sound quality and how much noise exposure is there, the amount of greenery and blue and sort of water spaces and the overall tranquility. And then it also allows you to do is calculate a route to that location from wherever you are or wherever you decide your starting point is. And it calculates a route that optimizes all those different data layers to find the cleanest, healthiest and the greenest route that can hopefully allow you to arrive at your destination feeling refreshed and avoiding pollution and hopefully encouraging the well-being.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Great. I'm excited about this. I want to know how I can help. And we'll be back in a moment speaking to Grant Waters from Tranquility City in a moment after this, in the second part of Your Green Voice.
Voice. Let's go. Voice FM.
On sunny Southampton's Voice FM, that is Sabrina Carpenter, and please, 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 a very good afternoon to you. My name is Xan. Welcome to Your Green Voice, where we are looking after the environment and bringing you guests, people who are here to either help the planet or even Southampton. And our guest at the moment is certainly doing that. It's Grant Waters, Director of Tranquil City, who are an environmental data and research company. In the previous part of the show, he was talking about sound and noise in Southampton, pollution, how they monitor it, how they're going to use data to help drive a website that you can go to and say, if you want to get from, let's say, St. Mary's to Shirley, and you want to go the quietest, greenest, most least polluted route, then the website is going to do that. Grant, have you got a name for this website yet?
Well, that's one thing we haven't settled on just yet. The project is called Clean Air Routes for Southampton. But if anyone's got any ideas, hopefully they can bring them to the workshops that we're doing next week. We'd love to hear about what you'd like the name to be.
And what else can we do at these workshops?
So we're going to be running 2 workshops, one on Monday in Beaverstown and one in Coxford on Tuesday. And they're there to look at the comparison difference and sort of help people experience what the difference is for taking a direct route that most traditional web apps and apps will give you, and then the one that we will provide, which is the one that's the least polluted, greenest and the quietest and better sounding route. And what we're going to experiment with is actually measure people's perceptions of those 2 routes, how it improves mood, how it improves happiness even, and also what sort of aspects they can see on the route. Can they see trees, greenery? Can they hear the sounds of nature? Do they feel like the air is cleaner? So it's a lot to do with how we can gather information about how people feel on the street, how these routes can actually provide benefit.
Do you think this is going to appeal? I mean, it's going to appeal to a lot of people who love all those things you're talking about. But what about those who are time poor, those who are desperate to get to somewhere as quick as possible? Are they going to see any difference?
Well, to be honest, the way that we're doing the routing algorithm, it's not something that's going to be giving you an hour-long walk for somewhere that might take 20 minutes, the direct route. Ideally, the routing algorithm will give you 5 to 10 minutes extra. So it's not a significant amount of time. So we know that people won't take an hour-long route when it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, down the road. That's kind of not really realistic. So we are putting those constraints in the routing algorithm to make sure that it's not offering you routes that are just not feasible and practical. So we do really want to make sure this is practical for people. And these workshops, we're particularly looking at areas where there is potentially a decent level of walking and cycling already, but potentially we can encourage that more. Also because there's high levels of pollution there. So we're going to areas that we think hopefully we'll be able to engage people and sort of think about their sort of short journeys. We also looked at the Ordnance Survey data, but also Office for National Statistics, and looking at, well, what type of journey times are people's commutes? Do people commute less than 5 kilometers, 2 kilometers? There's information of that, completely anonymized, obviously, but it means that we can look at these two areas, have a lot of people who walk or cycle already in under 2 kilometers to their destination of work or education. So the idea is that we are actually able to look through the data to kind of target areas that hopefully this will be appealing to initially and start to build momentum for how taking cleaner air routes can hopefully build a movement in Southampton to walk and cycle and wheel more.
So when you're looking at this data, I'm seeing you as like some sort of doctor who is sort of peering over Southampton and seeing everything that's going on. And you almost have a snapshot now of the health of the city and the activity of the people that are going around. How would you, not necessarily summarize it, because I'd like to hear quite a little bit more, but how would you, if Southampton was sitting there in your office saying, how am I, Doc? What would you say to Southampton?
It's a really interesting point. I don't like to see ourselves as some people overseeing things. We definitely want to make sure that we're on the ground talking to people who are in the area and are actually using and will hopefully benefit from this. That's why we're doing the workshops. But to answer their question more directly, I think the interesting part is that the pollution levels in general, according to the UK DEFRA targets, so the ones that are set by the UK government, most of the locations are all underneath that as an annual average sort of point of view. There are peaks, obviously, that will go in areas that are much higher than those recommended values. So there are very polluted areas in the city. But much like any other city, it's a lot to do with how congestion is sort of apparent, how that sort of flow of traffic, and also encouraging short journeys that are more hopefully beneficial for people to do by walking and cycling are encouraged. So I mean, in terms of how the health of the city, most cities are kind of similar in the sense of they're highly polluted because of the vehicles and the congestion. And it's how we encourage that behavior change to really provide that benefit for everyone, really, because more and more people taking walking and cycling for those short trips will mean there's less congestion. It's easier for people who do need to drive. And it also means that there's less cars on the road. That means less emissions and better air quality for your children and everyone else in the community. So over the long term, the idea of this change towards walking and cycling is also, to provide a lot of benefit for everyone. That's the idea. So yeah, there's a lot of similar problems in Southampton as other cities in the UK. But I think the behavior change and making sure practical solutions are offered to people that are appealing and positive and show the value of why it's good to do those things, and also how it will benefit the local community is really important. So I definitely don't want to do the overarching thing. I don't know the answers. The people of Southampton will have the real answers, but we're just here to kind of help support those who are interested in that sort of alternative way of routing and finding out about the city, about this health and healthy areas and the areas that can avoid pollution. They have that information. So we just want to support them.
I should know the answer to this question already, but is this the first time you've done something like this in a city, or have you got other cities that you can say, look, this worked and that worked, or learn from your experience?
So we started in London. So we did the mapping and all the data collection and how we actually construct our data sets, the research in London. And we worked with the Greater London Authority to do the wellbeing and sustainability measure that looked at environmental aspects of that in relation to those other sort of socio-economic aspects, trying to set precedent for what wellbeing means in an urban environment. In Bristol, we did a similar project that's pretty closest to this one, which we did with the council, and again with Go Jauntly, where we create the same data and we integrate it into the Go Jauntly walking app, which you featured already and is heavily present in Southampton. But this is the real project, the new project in which we're actually providing this new website that will be a resource for the residents and visitors of Southampton. So it's kind of brand new in that aspects, except we're applying all the knowledge that we have from London and Bristol in terms of engagement, and also how we can account for people with the interest of what people are finding is appealing to them, to encourage them to walk and cycle. So this is the biggest project we've had for the routing project.
Well, I'm excited about it. I will be at one of the workshops. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Monday's workshop. But what would you like the people coming to bring? Is it mainly everything in the mind, or is there anything else you'd like them to? What kind of attitude?
Yeah, the attitude is, well, to be honest, I think their experiences of Southampton and what this means for them is really what we're interested in understanding. So we want to speak to people and take people on a bit of a journey, and figuratively and literally through a different part of Southampton, and sort of understand how by making these different choices and thinking about your environmental quality in the environment that you're in every day, and the choices you make can actually have a big impact on how you feel. So we really want people to come with an open mind, come with an inquisitive mind, come with a mind to think about, well, how does this environment affect me and how I feel, and also come away with feelings that they can hopefully contribute to how we can make this relevant for the people of Southampton, and really make it an appealing tool that people can use on an everyday basis.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Grant, thank you so much. If you are keen to come and do one of these workshops, the tickets are available on Eventbrite. I would suggest searching for Clean Air Routes, or you can visit our website. We've got a blog. It's the first thing you'll see on the website. That's at voicefmradio.co.uk. Beaverstown is on Monday, and that's at 3:40 to 5:10. And then Coxwood is on Tuesday, which is 12 o'clock to 1:30. It's free, it's fun, and it's going to help Southampton not only be a cleaner place, but also a happier place, a place where people move around and get to their destination feeling better and less stressed. So Grant Waters, Director of Tranquil City, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to meeting you next week.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.
Voice. Let's go. Voice FM.